They circled the coordinates with excitement pulsing through their veins. The Tharnax hunting squad had roamed dozens of primitive systems, tracking rare creatures for trophies. But humans? They were a curiosity, not a challenge. Their biology was unremarkable, their weapons outdated, and their species scattered. The idea of hunting one wasn't just thrilling, it was symbolic. Proof that Tharnax's superiority extended even to intelligent prey. Reports suggested an isolated human signature on this fringed moon. Alone, no reinforcements, injured. Perfect. The lead hunter, Commander Dravik, examined the incoming scans. A female, hunched near a ridge, dragging what seemed to be a long-range projectile weapon, something Earthlings called a sniper rifle. Primitive tech, ineffective against Tharnax armor. She's limping, one scout noted, reviewing thermal overlays. Easy pickings. Dravik sneered. She's bait without realizing it. Let her crawl. It makes the hunt more entertaining. The squad disembarked under stealth fields, deploying in a crescent around her estimated position. 17 elite operatives, armed with plasma lances, motion cloaks, and hunter AI. Each step calculated, each breath monitored. The Tharnax lived for this, a clean kill, a displayed trophy, the prestige of having conquered another species. No one questioned the odds. After all, humans were weak. Their resistance during the first contact wars had been emotional, not strategic. Loud, disorganized, desperate. But this female, something in her stance drew curiosity. She wasn't fleeing. She was stationary. Patient. She's waiting, muttered one younger hunter. She doesn't know we're already surrounding her? She'll know when she hears her bones cracking. Another chuckled. But there was unease brewing. The terrain felt deliberate. Flat rock layered with natural choke points. Strange placement of debris, some too uniform to be coincidence. No movement from the target. Just the occasional flicker of heat, and the glint of her scope reflecting starlight. Still, the aliens pressed forward. Then the veteran Varen broke protocol. Commander, this doesn't feel right. Dravik rolled his eyes. You think a wounded human is laying a trap? Don't insult our training. I've hunted humans before, Varen said slowly. They're unpredictable. One of them once used the corpses of their own squad to rig explosives. They'd rather die clever than live weak. That was during a siege, Dravik snapped. This is a lone survivor. She's not a soldier. She's prey. And we are hunters. But Varen wasn't convinced. The others mocked his hesitation, citing past glories and body counts. The Tharnax had never failed. Their pride had never met a real obstacle. And they believed, absolutely, that this day would be no different. The squad advanced further, the circle tightening. The distance to the target was shrinking. Thermal readings suggested she hadn't moved at all. Perhaps she had fallen unconscious. Perhaps the wound was fatal. No resistance, no traps, just an abandoned human waiting to be claimed. Still, the silence weighed heavy. Not even wildlife, one muttered. No birds. No insects. I like it, Dravik grinned. Means we'll hear the scream clearly when we take her. A cruel laughter passed between them, short-lived and hollow. The truth was, even their advanced sensors weren't functioning at full range. Subtle interference was corrupting the signal feedback. A ghosting effect in their HUDs. Static in their headsets. It was written off as environmental decay, common on abandoned human worlds. No one imagined that it was intentional. Dravik raised his arm to signal final approach. In under 3 minutes, they'd be within stun range. Her weapon wouldn't even get a shot off. They'd take her alive if possible. Public humiliation of a captured human combatant would make the kill sweeter. In his mind, the kill was already his. But at the edge of the formation, the scout designated Reth 9 froze. He turned. He blinked. There was a shimmer on the ridge. A flash. Then silence. No scream. No explosion. Just one blip vanishing from their roster. Reth 9 was gone. Confusion swept through the formation. Dravik checked for seismic activity, predators, misfires. Nothing. Just silence and one less operative. "Report!" he barked. No answer. Just crackling. Another blip vanished. Then another. "Fall back!" someone shouted, but was cut off mid-word. The circle broke. Eyes darted in every direction. Shapes emerged and disappeared, as if the rocks themselves were alive. Shadows danced where there was no light. Panic replaced arrogance in seconds. Commander Dravik stared at the ridge. She was still there. Standing now. Not limping. Not hiding. And her rifle, ancient by their standards, was pointed straight at him. Not prey. Hunter. Too late, he understood. The remaining Tharnex operatives scattered into cover, adrenaline crashing against their disciplined routines. Dravik's commands came sharp, clipped, urgent: secure perimeter, triangulate fire, stabilize formation. But cohesion was already slipping. Their supposed prey had not only drawn first blood but done so without revealing her position. That kind of precision wasn't random. It was training. And worse, it was intent. They repositioned with urgency. Sensors swept the terrain in every wavelength. Still nothing. Her thermal was gone. Her signal, erased. They were blind. "She's jamming us," one operative muttered, his voice tight. "Impossible," Dravik barked. "She doesn't have the tech." A second operative went down mid-sentence. No flash. No sound. Just a clean hole through the back of the skull, his body crumpling where he stood. Panic surged through the squad. They'd faced kinetic weapons before, but never like this, never this quiet, this surgical. The impact zones showed zero deviation. High-caliber rounds, armor-piercing, manually aimed. No autolock. No drones. Pure skill. "She's hunting us," Varen growled. Dravik's jaw clenched. "We hunt back." They broke into teams, rotating positions every 15 seconds, each covering the other. It was a textbook counter-sniper maneuver. But the textbook assumed the shooter had limitations. That she'd reveal a pattern. That she'd need repositioning. But she didn't move. Or maybe she did, and they never saw it. A third shot rang out, cracking through the upper ridge. It missed. Barely. But that wasn't a failure. It was a message. The operative who nearly died began to hyperventilate. They were no longer soldiers in control. They were being toyed with. Data feed remained unstable. No drone telemetry, no orbital scans. It was as if the region had fallen under a technological blackout. A fourth kill confirmed the worst: she was adapting. First shot from above. Second from low angle. Third from distance. Fourth? Side flank. Dravik cursed. She wasn't just a sniper. She was mobile. And faster than any of their motion predictions allowed for. Every model of her position failed within seconds of recalculation. "We need to flush her out," someone hissed. "She's not a rat," Varen replied. "She's the hawk. She's one human," Dravik snapped. "One!" But his voice held less weight now. Fear had crept into every Tharnex soldier. The weight of silence. The cold math of being hunted. They deployed seeker grenades, pulse bombs meant to disrupt cloaking and mask heat signatures. The terrain flashed and burned in pulses of blue, but all it revealed was empty rock and old bones. Suddenly, a motion alert triggered. 5 meters ahead, a flicker of movement. One operative fired, lighting up the zone. The target collapsed, a body. Human. Female. Motionless. They swarmed it. But as they turned her over, realization struck too late. The face wasn't real. It was a mask. The body? A thermal dummy with heated pads under torn armor. Blood packs simulated injuries. The entire decoy, constructed to bleed, move, and breathe like a dying human. "Trap!" Varen yelled. A mine detonated 10 meters behind them, catching 2 Tharnex mid-sprint. The others scrambled, breaking formation. Chaos reigned. The sniper hadn't just been shooting, she'd been drawing them in. Each reaction they gave her confirmed positions, movement tendencies, latency in response. She wasn't defending. She was studying. There were data points. The surviving operatives huddled near a jagged ridge, weapons drawn in every direction. Communication remained spotty. Backup was hours away, and even that wasn't guaranteed. No one dared speak. Breathing was the only sound left. Then her voice crackled over their internal channels. Calm. Cold. 4 down. Every Tharnix froze. I marked every heartbeat. You stepped into my ground, thinking I wouldn't fight. Dravik snarled, trying to trace the signal. You thought you had time. Thought I'd beg. Thought I'd run. But I've been waiting. Watching. You gave me days. Another operative collapsed beside him. The shot arrived before her final word finished. You have minutes. The rest fired blindly, unloading in all directions. Plasma lit the shadows, searing holes into rock and brush. But no sound came back. No scream. No movement. Just static. Then silence. Again. They were trained killers. But training could not overwrite instinct. And instinct now screamed one truth into their minds. They were not hunting. They were dying. One by one. Her breathing was steady, heart rate controlled, every movement deliberate. She had no backup, no reinforcements, no illusion of survival beyond this mission. But she didn't need saving. She wasn't here to escape. She was here to finish what they started. They had killed her entire unit. Not in battle, but execution. Trapped, outnumbered, surrendering, and still, the Tharnix didn't offer mercy. They filmed the slaughter. Laughed as they dragged bodies across dirt. She had watched from beneath a ledge, bleeding, broken, and forgotten. Not rescued, not found. But alive. And that mistake would cost them everything. Since that day, she hadn't rested. She studied their tactics, observed patrol cycles, logged frequencies, measured weapons ranges. Every dead body was a lesson. Every sound a pattern. Their confidence was her camouflage. They never imagined a human survivor would remain. And certainly not one planning a counteroffensive. But this wasn't revenge. Revenge was emotional. This was strategy. Cold, calculated elimination. A slow dismantling of an enemy who thought they controlled the board. She never intended a firefight. She engineered a collapse. She had time. They gave it to her by being arrogant. The terrain wasn't chosen by chance. It was shaped. She repurposed everything. Satellite fragments became shrapnel mines. Broken optics converted into motion alarms. Old energy cells twisted into heat lures. Even the trees were marked with coded etchings, guiding her silently across kill zones. Her rifle, though aged, had been modified relentlessly. Reinforced barrel, recoil dampeners, smart optics fused from scavenged alien gear. It wasn't just a weapon anymore, it was an extension of her will. Every trigger pull was preceded by data confirmation, distance calculation, wind mapping. And every shot landed precisely where it needed to. The Tharnix couldn't adapt. Not fast enough. Their training relied on superiority, on pushing the enemy into submission. She gave them no target, no voice, no face. Only a presence. Unseen, unfelt, until it was too late. She moved now with calculated ease, switching positions before they'd even finished reacting to the last shot. Their fear was growing, becoming erratic. They no longer coordinated. Each squad operated in isolation, misreading every sound, firing at shadows. And that was part of her plan. Every misfire drained their energy reserves. Every moment they stayed active, their heat signatures rose. Their own tech betrayed them. She listened to their comms, decrypted their code cycles days ago. She knew their code names. Their ranks. Their pulse rhythms. She wasn't improvising. She was executing a script they had unknowingly written for her. One of the aliens stepped into a narrow pass, exactly where she'd set a reflective sensor to mimic motion. The operative paused, aimed, and in that moment of hesitation, his skull was pierced by a silent round. No waste. No second shot. The body slumped into brush, forgotten by his own command chain, too panicked to notice. She activated a signal beacon on the opposite ridge, timed to pulse on their distress frequency. They swarmed toward it. Her trail? Already 2 ridges away. She placed a drone carcass in the path, lined with flares. It ignited upon touch, briefly blinding the squad and exposing them to thermal optics. Another shot. Another down. But she didn't celebrate. She didn't hate them. Emotion had been burned away in the first days after the massacre. What remained was pure mission. She intercepted their audio again. Fragmented calls for retreat. Permission denied by Dravik. He still believed control could be re-established. That's what arrogance does, blinds leaders to collapse until it swallows them. She whispered a phrase into their comms, voice clear. This is balance. They froze. Every operative stopped for a split second, too long. 2 more dropped. By now, the ridge was a graveyard. Scorch marks, shattered helmets, empty plasma canisters. But no sign of her. Not a boot print. Not a trail. Their scans betrayed them. Artificial intelligence couldn't map a ghost. She used silence as a weapon. Waited for their nerves to betray muscle memory. Created gaps in their own systems. She placed sound loops of panicked footsteps to their left, then flanked from the right. Fired only when one moved out of sync with the rest. They weren't dying from bullets. They were dying from doubt. Doubt that any of their methods worked here. Doubt that their training prepared them. Doubt that survival was still an option. The original 17 were now 8. And none of them knew where she was. Because she wasn't behind the trigger anymore. She was everywhere. The silence had become unbearable. Each Tharnex moved with hesitation, scanning corners that didn't exist, flinching at every gust of wind. Their once synchronized movements now resembled the chaos of prey, not predators. Dravik, still clinging to fragments of command, barked orders into static. He no longer expected a reply. He just needed to hear his own voice to feel in control. 7 operatives remained. Exhausted, disoriented, and wounded, both physically and mentally. Their armor was scratched, scorched, and dented. Their eyes were sunken behind visors. She hadn't just broken their formation, she had dismantled their belief in dominance. Then her voice returned, not in a whisper, but clear, cold, and precise across all their open channels. You trained to hunt. I trained to survive. The transmission cut before anyone could track it. Dravik slammed a fist against his helmet. Every moment she spoke was another calculated wound. She didn't speak to provoke. She spoke to remind them that this was never a fight. It was punishment. A new signal lit up their HUDs, the location of their own shuttle. Dravik stared at it, puzzled. No trap was visible. No anomalies. No energy spikes. The signal was uncorrupted. After hesitation, he gave the command to move. Their evac was their only hope now. They reached the shuttle's clearing with weapons ready. The ramp was open. Lights powered on. It seemed untouched. Then one operative stepped forward, scanned the hull, and froze. The biometric seal had been broken. She had been here. Before they even landed. Panic rose again. The ship was silent. No alarms. No interior movement. But something felt wrong. Dravik ordered 2 inside to secure it. They obeyed, against every instinct. Seconds later, both biosignatures vanished. No blast. No scream. Just 2 lights blinking out. That was the moment the rest understood. She hadn't set a trap at the ship. She had planned this far ahead. Accessed their systems, mapped their fallback protocols, waited for this exact retreat. The ship was no longer a sanctuary. It was a tomb. They fled the clearing, retreating toward high ground. But even escape was part of her design. Motion triggers lit their path, flashing every movement in sequence, broadcasting their route through low-frequency pings. She wasn't chasing. She was hurting. One broke from the group, scrambling left into a ravine. He vanished beneath a collapsing ledge, triggered by a pressure plate camouflaged beneath native moss. No warning. Just dust, and then silence. 6. Their ranks were bleeding, not from wounds, but from control unraveling. Every time they thought independently, they died. Every time they followed command, they were ambushed. No right move remained. Only delay. Dravik halted. His breathing sharp, eyes wide. She had outclassed them in every category. She had turned their own strengths into weaknesses. And she had done it alone. That was the truth cutting deepest, not just the failure, but the exposure. The idea that a single human had the capacity to humiliate a full unit of elite Tharniks. Then, the last thing he expected. She revealed her position. Openly. Across the canyon, standing upright, rifle slung across her back, arms down. No tricks. No cover. She stared through her scope directly at him. Every instinct screamed to fire. But he didn't. Neither did the others. Her stance wasn't hostile. It was final. She let them see her, not as a target, but as a reminder. One survivor who had shattered everything they believed about weakness. She raised her hand. Pointed to the last 5. Then slowly, deliberately, lowered her hand to leave only one marked. Dravik. The rest died in seconds. No panic now. No chaos. Just clean, quiet executions. She didn't run. Didn't gloat. Just turned and disappeared into the cliffs. Dravik dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Not with grief. But with something his species never understood before this day. Humility. He activated his beacon. No words. Just coordinates. Let them come. Let them see what was left. Let them recover the bodies. Let them collect the data she had allowed him to keep. She wanted him alive. Not as a mercy. As a warning. The recovery team arrived 3 days later. Their dropship descended over scorched rock and broken bodies. No resistance, no engagement, only silence and the sharp scent of ash. Drones spread out, scanning for survivors, but there was only one left, Commander Dravik, seated against a rock, helmet off, eyes hollow. He didn't speak. He didn't stand. He simply handed over his mission recorder and pointed to the ridge. They reviewed the footage in silence. 17 seasoned hunters. Minimal opposition expected. One human target. Routine engagement. What followed was anything but. Shot by shot, the feed displayed a massacre conducted without spectacle. No glory, no theatrics. Only brutal efficiency. She didn't just kill them, she erased their presence from the field like an executioner with a ledger. Command wanted answers. How had a lone human, with no satellite intel, no advanced targeting, no support, dismantled one of their best units? But the data held no tricks, no hidden weapons, no unknown technology. Just positioning. Patience. Discipline. She used everything: wind, shadow, sound, terrain, even their psychology. She exploited the very training they relied on, forcing them to collapse under their own doctrines. What unsettled the Tharniks more than the losses was the method. It wasn't random violence. It was structured. Cold. Surgical. The kind of approach only one thing could explain: intent. Not instinct. Not panic. Purpose. They tried to classify her. They searched Earth's military rosters, but her ID tag was long deactivated, listed among the fallen. No medals awarded. No transmission logs. Just a missing soldier presumed dead after an ambush. The ambush led by Tharnik's command. Now, her actions told a different story. Rumors spread faster than the official report. Outer colonies whispered of the ghost of Karo's Ridge, a human who didn't die, who didn't surrender, who became vengeance made flesh. Mercenary networks, black market brokers, and fringe warlords circulated her image, blurry, distant, untouchable. Not a soldier. A force. She was added to Tharnak's priority threat lists under a classification reserved only for planetary-scale anomalies. Her bounty reached figures normally reserved for rebellion leaders and war criminals. But no one accepted the contract. Not even the ones who claimed they feared nothing. Because fear had a name now. And it wasn't human. It was personal. Tharnak's training academies began rewriting engagement protocols. New recruits were warned never to underestimate human survivors. Officers were instructed to treat lone signals with extreme caution. Commanders were told, if you see her, it's already too late. Dravik was reassigned. Not discharged, humiliated. Paraded internally as an example of overconfidence, then buried beneath administrative silence. His name became a curse among elite circles. He had faced the impossible and lived. Not because of valor, but because she wanted him to. The message was clear: the Tharnaks hunt where they please, but not humans. Not alone. Not again. And her trail? Vanished. She left no digital trace, no radio emissions, no known destination. Some believed she died after the operation, her mission complete. Others were certain she lived in the shadows, waiting for another squad to make the same mistake. Months passed. Then years. On distant worlds, Tharnak's forces began discovering their own scouts killed with identical methods, silent, efficient, always left in symbolic numbers. 1, then 2. Then 4. Patterns etched into the terrain with gear placement. Old Earth sniper code. Unmistakable. She hadn't retired. She had escalated. But not randomly. Only those who had participated in purges. Only those who had hunted civilians. She was drawing lines in blood, not revenge, but consequence. An equation she would balance one death at a time. Entire operations were aborted the moment her calling cards appeared. Commanders refused deployment. Elite units fabricated mechanical failures to avoid assignment. It wasn't just morale, it was belief. They believed she was out there. Not as a person. As inevitability. She had become myth. A single human rewriting the rules of power through silence, patience, and precision. And still, she never spoke again. Her last words, recorded in Dravik's broken comms, remained the only proof of her voice. You were never hunters. You were just next. That sentence became the final entry in the official Tharnak's doctrine on human warfare, now required reading for all ground units. Because sometimes, the worst enemy isn't a fleet. It's the one you never saw coming.